Ryan here with LongRangeOnly.com. In this video, we're going to talk about the Zeiss LRP S3. I've got it right here. This review, if you watch any of my content, you're going to know right off the bat this is a little bit different. Normally I do it outside with the rifle. It's been raining all the time and it's super windy and I just can't get good audio, or I don't really feel like doing the review in the rain. So I've got it right here in front of me. The other thing that's different is I don't have it on a rifle currently. This thing's been on a few different rifles. We've had this since pre-launch. We do have a little bit of content on my initial impressions out on social media, and a thread already started on the forum. Let's go ahead and dive into this scope, who I think it's for, and the things that I love the most about it. So when it comes to these price range scopes, to me, the gold standard is Night Force. I know there's a lot of other people that like Collis, they like Schmidt and Bender, Tangent, Theta, Z Zero Compromise has become very popular, and personally, I just don't see, I've not shot behind every single one of them. I've had the opportunity to play with all of the turrets and look through the glass and all that stuff of all of them. And I really just don't see the value in some of those scopes as you go up in price past the ATAC-R. And for me personally, I like scopes in that 2-pound range like the NXS and the NX8. So I know there's scopes out there for everyone, but realistically, what I'm going to consider my gold standard is the Night Force line of optics. Again, I know that a lot of people disagree with that, and that's fine. But let's go ahead and talk about the features of this, then we will talk about the comparisons to the scopes that I use the most. So this is a release after the LRP S5, which is a bigger, heavier scope, probably in more direct competition with the ATAC-R from Night Force, more intended for the PRS crowd. And I would say that this is probably realistically leaning towards that PRS crowd as well, maybe NRL Hunter, but it's a great hunting scope too. It is a little on the heavy side, and I'm not going to get directly into the exact specs. I will put them up here in the introduction. You will be able to pause and look at those specs. But it is right around 36 ounces. This exact setup that I've got here is I've got the exact same setup on one of my NX8s, and this is 8 ounces heavier than a 4-32 NX8. Okay. The glass, I would say, is very comparable to an NX8. I don't think chromatic aberration or vignetting is an issue. If there is any, then it's very minute and very hard to distinguish, and definitely hard to distinguish from other scopes in the price range. Glass optically, like I said, is like the NX8 in my opinion. The clarity, the color rendition's very similar, and the low light transmission, or the ability to see in low light, is very comparable. So glass-wise, I think it's basically the same as some of the other scopes out there in the price range. I think if you've watched my videos in the past, you know that I don't really care much about the glass quality. I've never personally seen a optic that has glass so substandard that it's an issue for me on a scope that's above $1,000. Now, for you glass snobs, this is definitely not going to be as nice as the S5. It's a little bit less than the ATAC-R and some of the other scopes like the high-end Swarovski scopes. But it is definitely usable, and it will let you see anything that you need to shoot up to the legal shooting light. What do I not like about this scope? I don't really love the weight, but weight is always going to be a compromise for durability. Now, just because it's heavy doesn't mean it's durable, and just because it's light doesn't mean that it's not going to be durable, but there is a trade-off in the components used versus the durability and the weight. So I don't really love the weight. So that's really the only thing I don't like about it. Let's get into all the things that I do love about this scope and why I would recommend it. So it is a nice compact scope. It's quite a bit smaller than the LRP S5. And I'm going to go ahead and grab, here's an NXS, but you can see it's quite a bit shorter than the NXS, and I've got an NX8 right here. It's actually a little bit smaller than the 4-32 NX8. So I do love how compact it is. Now, other things that I like about it, and there's a lot of them. I'm going to try to hit on all of them for you. I like the fact that it's 25 minutes per rev. The NX8 is only 20. It's not a huge deal, but I really like having as many revs, as many minutes per rev as I can get, because I just don't like going past one. I know it doesn't really matter, especially with zero stops, but I really like to be able to stay on that first rev. It just makes it easier to keep track of, so you don't have to go all the way back to zero if you do lose count for some reason. And the situations where that's usable are very low. I understand that, but I do like it. It's just a little tiny thing, and it wouldn't be a decision-making point for me to buy one scope over the other, but it is notable. Okay, I love the locking windage turret, and I'm probably going to talk about that a few times. I go back and forth between dialing for windage and not dialing for windage, just holding off. It depends on the situation, the wind call, all that stuff. And if you're dialing for wind every time, it's not a big deal because you're going to check your wind dial anyways. But if you're one of the individuals that holds off, it might not be in your shot sequence. So you get down, you get on the animal, you get on the target, whatever, you range it, you get a wind, you get all that stuff put in your calculator, you get a ballistic calculation, and depending on how you use turrets versus hold off, you may not always look at the windage. I strongly encourage you to do it no matter what, but a lot of times you don't. And so if you're holding off, I like the fact that it's lockable. It's not going to get away from zero. And I have had that happen in the past with scopes that didn't have some of these features. The windage turret did get turned, and it was a quick situation where hold off was the more appropriate method for controlling wind, and the turret had moved. So my buddy that was with me missed that shot. I love the locking windage turret. Now, when you're using it, it's just as good as any other turret out there. The clicks are nice and audible. They feel really good. They're actually one of my favorite turrets, both in the way they feel, and I love the turrets. Now, that's definitely a personal thing. The Night Force turrets have become my favorite out of every scope out there. It doesn't matter if it's an ATAC-R, NXS, NX8. I love the turret design. The feel, that's also a little bit dependent on the personality or the person using it. A lot of people have different preferences. My favorite's probably the NXS and the NX8. There's a lot of good scopes. Really, if they're just tactile feeling and they're audible clicks, then it's going to be something that I'm probably going to be able to use. These are up there with the best. I really like the turrets a lot. And like I said, that locking windage feature is very nice. The zero stop on this is easy to set. It's just like most of the other Zeiss scopes and like most of the other scopes out there in today's world. They're different than the LRP S5, which has a completely different mechanism inside. This is easy. It's not quite as easy as the S5, but everyone who has set a zero stop in the past couple years on most scopes is going to know how to use this. I'm not a big illuminated reticle person, so everyone that's watched my videos has definitely heard me talk about that. But if you're going to have an illuminated reticle, I think this is the best way to do it, just with the turns, and it goes on and off between all the settings. And there's green and red. They're also labeled green and red in where you turn, and there's off in between every single setting. There's an off. If you have to have a reticle, illuminated reticle, this is how I think it should be done. I just can't fall in love with the way Night Force does the illuminated reticles. Again, love Night Force scopes, but I think this is how an illuminated reticle should be turned on and off. So if you're looking for an illuminated reticle, I think that you're going to like this. It does just do the center. It doesn't do the whole thing, which I also like. And then there is a little bleed through to the rest of the reticle depending on the light conditions, but you can adjust the brightness very rapidly and get rid of that. Okay. The other thing I like about it is this is probably one of my preferred methods for the diopter setting. I don't like it being a big ring up here like on, I don't really like the night force diopter setting. It turns all the time, it comes loose and it turns, I shouldn't say all the time, it's more likely to do that. So I don't really love how that is on like the NX8. The NXS, the style's still the same, so those are the ones I don't like. So the diopter on this is quick, easy to set, and it doesn't move. It hasn't moved since I've been using it. Okay. The zoom ring is very smooth. All of the controls on this are very smooth. The parallax is super smooth. It's not too easy to turn that it's going to turn on its own. It's not too hard that you have to crank on it. It really didn't take any wear in, and both of those are very nice. Okay, the other thing is it does come with a zoom ring lever, and it's very nice. It's pretty big. It may be a little bit too big for me. If it were up to me, I would probably make it half this size, but it has several places that you can put it on this zoom ring itself, and that would allow both left-handed and right-handed rifles to have it in the appropriate spot. I don't do a lot of shooting down on 4 power, so for me, I have it set so that when it's on 4, it's in the configuration that would most likely cause an issue with the bolt throw. But on 25 power, it is clear over out of the way. So I really do like that, and you don't have to use it. And like I said, the zoom ring is so smooth that you don't necessarily need it, but it is a nice feature to have. Okay, and right out of the gate, I did forget to mention, I said I would put the specs up here, and that is true, but one of the big ones that does matter, it is a 4 to 24 power, and to me, that's a really good zoom range. 25 is, for me, on a high-end scope, that's about as low as I want to go, that 24 to 25. And 4 power, for me personally, I don't really see myself needing a whole lot smaller magnification. So 25 is probably as low on the magnification as I would want to go on the high end, 24 to 25. And then the 4 times magnification is about, I don't see myself using less than that. Very, very rarely. Well, I have never wanted or needed anything less than 4 times magnification. Okay, and then the last thing to talk about is the reticle. I'll put a picture up here in the screen for you to look at. It's one of my favorite reticles. I like that it's fairly simple. You got the MOA, the ticks on the minute, and then it's got a floating center dot, which makes it very usable for target type shooting. And the way it's set up, it's not so small that it's not usable in hunting situations. It's a very good designed reticle in my opinion. It does have numbers along the hash marks, which when I first looked at it, didn't know if I was going to love it, but after using it, I've actually come to prefer it. If you're holding off for wind, there's no counting. It's just right there. You go, your calculator says a 3-minute hold, you go to 3 minutes, you hold over and you pull the trigger, and it's that simple. So I really do love that. All right, it does have a 34 millimeter main tube, and there are several advantages to that. I'm not going to get into it. I wouldn't pick a scope because it's a 34 versus a 30 millimeter. Like I said, the NX8 is one of my favorite scopes, and it's a 30 millimeter tube, but this does have a 34 millimeter tube. Okay, now let's get into the most important thing to me is The durability of the scope, the ability to hold zero. I know a lot of people out there show tracking tests, and I think maybe a lot of our viewers get frustrated that we don't actually show that. I do tracking tests, but I'm not going to waste my time showing it. I personally have not seen a scope over $1,000 that didn't track. Now, you should do a tracking test, and you should note the variance in what you actually see on paper versus what you're clicking, because they will all have a very, very small discrepancy between the spec. It's a mechanical thing, and it's going to happen. But I've never seen one that was gross enough that I would say was a failure. And when you pull it out of the box, that's not when that tracking's going to fail anyways. It doesn't. I don't care really how cheap it is. Within reason. I'm not going to comment on $200 and $300 scopes because I don't use them, but the failure in the tracking is going to happen after thousands and thousands of turns, not somebody sitting here doing this. I've never seen one fail from this. I'm not saying they don't, I've just never seen it, so I don't see any value in it. But the durability, I do impact testing on all these scopes. This one, the first time I tested, I did see a shift in the horizontal. I could not repeat it, and because I saw that, just like when we did the loophole review, when I see something that I didn't expect, a reticle shift or movement, when I do the impact testing, I check it over and over and over and over and over. I've lost track of how many times I've tested this now. I could not repeat it. I take it off, I beat it. We're not really going to get into how I impact tested it, but I can assure you it's not very nice. We're not going to do it to my wood bench here, but I beat the crap out of these scopes to check for failure. Could not get this one to repeat. When the loophole failed, it would repeat every time. It just kept moving. That loophole had to get sent off, and it was found to be defective, and they did replace it. But they have a lot of history for that type of failure. So this, I would consider it a pass. You can do what you want with this information. I'm going to continue to use this scope with confidence. It's taken a beating, and I cannot get it to repeat, so I have no issue using this scope. And to me, that is the most important thing, is how durable is it. So I think I covered everything that we need to talk about with long-range hunting scope or any hunting scope, but let's go ahead and rehash these and we'll wrap up this video. The things that I love about it. I love the compact size. I love the smooth zoom ring. I like that the throw lever is out of the way when I am using it at the magnification that I'm going to use it at. And I really do appreciate that you have options on where to put it, and some others may use the different options than I'm using. I love the diopter adjustment, as it is with most of these Zeiss scopes. That's where it's at. I think the glass is great. The reticle is one of my favorites. I don't really know how I'd rank it. It's definitely in the top 2 or 3 just off the top of my head. I actually love the reticle. It's very usable in all cases. Hunting, target shooting, precise shooting where you need that small aim point. It's very, very good for that. I love the locking windage turret, and I'm going to re-emphasize that here in a second. I wish more people would go to a locking windage turret. The turrets are very nice, tactical feeling and tactile feeling, and I like the fact that it's 25 minutes per rev. The parallax adjust is very nice. It's very smooth. The illuminated reticle, if you have to have one, this is the style I think it should be. The weight is the only thing I don't love, but as with everything in these rifle scopes, it's a trade-off. It's hard to get some of these features and durability in something that's lightweight. It's not something that I would not purchase the scope for unless you are absolutely looking for that ultralight, and there are better options for that. But if you're looking for that, what I would consider to be the normal or the most optimal long-range hunting scope weight, this is going to be a scope that you can put on top of that. I would buy this scope with confidence, and it's probably in my top 3 or 4 favorite scopes out there on the market right now when everything is considered. And I talked about this up front. Some of those scopes like the Tangent Theta, I'm sorry, I don't see what it offers over a Night Force. My Night Forces hold up to anything I can put them through, and the glass is plenty good, and I would put this in that same category. Obviously feature sets are different, but I just don't see paying twice the price for something that does what I need it to do. It has good glass, it tracks, and the durability is great. And I've been using some of these scopes for years. This one's been abused. I don't see a problem with them. So if you're looking for that, what I would consider to be normal long-range hunting rifle weight, this is something that could go right on there. If you're looking for an NRL hunter or even some PRS style stuff, I don't shoot PRS, but this would be something to look at. I do think there may be some better options or other options that would open themselves to something that's that heavy. This isn't going to really lack a lot of features versus those other options, so it's still something you could consider. So that's really all I got to say about it. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. I'll have a link in the description below to a thread on the forum where you could head over, ask me any questions, and I'll try to get those answered. If I didn't talk about something you want to talk about or answer a question that you may have, I can answer it over there. Please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and turn on notifications. It really does help the channel out. And if you're not a member on longrangeonly.com, go ahead and sign up. It's quick, it's free, it's easy. There's a lot of great information. Obviously, we keep all of these review type data on the forum, but the members have a lot of information that and experience that we don't have, and they're very friendly. So it's a great place for like-minded individuals to go over to get information or share information. Like I said, quick, it's free, it's easy. Sign up. We'd love to have you. And again, I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. Have a great day.